Hi YouTube, it's been a while, and the reason is because this is a video I've been wanting to make for a long time, and I tried to make a few others talking about this question. The question is astrology compatible with being a Catholic or a Christian? And because this is such a huge topic and it's just so kind of life-changing, I've been putting it off, or I've tried to make it a few times and they just didn't work. So, where do I start? I have been watching a few on YouTube, and you'll see if you go and look up, there's all these videos of like, I was a tarot witch and then I found Jesus, or I was it's windy today. I was an astrologist. They all say astrologist, and then I found God, and all this. And the stories are very similar, and it's always people on the very extreme end as well. It's never just a normal person. It's someone who has been really abused when they were younger. And obviously the thing is, when you've been abused, or when you've gone through bullying or anything like that, you're searching for meaning. And obviously everybody not everyone who's spiritual has been abused, but it seems to be that the extreme cases when you go from being passionate about astrology or New Age stuff, and then you go to the Jesus lot, then they're all like the same thing. It's the same extreme kind of thing, that you can't be anywhere in between. That, then looking back at my evil past, it was the devil that was tempting me with astrology. Sorry, I've got a really bad froggy throat. I think it's allergies. And there doesn't seem to be any middle ground. And then I watched a really good version, or a good discussion with Chris Brennan and a Christian who was also an astrologer. And they covered a lot of stuff that was more... sorry, those people. They covered everything and made some really good points. And what I need to do is find there was another discussion that Christians had, that also I found myself agreeing with a lot of their stuff as well, because they were sort of saying about how, you've known this because I've talked about this before, about people putting too much power to the planets and not taking control of their own lives, and blaming everything on Saturn, and or not doing anything in their lives. Oh, aeroplanes. Until there's a good lineup. Now, can I cross here? Because this would be better. Oh yeah, you are allowed to cross, because the other gate was shut. Anyway, okay. So, sorry. So what was I saying? Yeah, so I found myself agreeing with I'd say what the Christians were saying, that they're also talking about the very worst of the New Age, which I also don't like. I totally agree with them about that. And also the druggy stuff as well, I have to say that. Which way should I walk? There's a person there, I'll go this way. I've never taken any psychedelics. The most I've ever got to was 10 mushrooms when I was at college, at uni, and I didn't see anything. I just had the giggles, and buying chocolate was a spiritual experience at the local at the petrol station. It was just hilarious having to ask for a Snickers and have them pass it through the plastic, the plastic glass thing, and under the little counter thing, just was hilarious to me. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, I've never taken any psychedelics, and when I was at art college, my hippy dippy teacher, he was looking at one of my pictures. He goes, "Wow, what drugs did you take to do that?" And I said, well, at the time, the only thing I ever did was, I smoked marijuana, as we all did. I said, just a bit. I don't think I even said that. Maybe I don't know. I think I just said, just a bit of pot. And he goes, what? He goes, what about LSD? Or I was like, no, don't do that. He goes, oh my God, if you do that, you'd just be amazing. I was thinking, well, I don't know. I don't think you can be an artist without taking freaking drugs. You shouldn't need to, Anyway, and that's the same with seeing God and the meaning of life. It's people that, I took ayahuasca and all these drugs to find the meaning of life. So I'm really glad I've never done that. I'm really, really glad that, because anyway, I digress. I mean, a lot of these people still found God, even though they'd taken all those things. But I do wonder whether, once those portals are open, whether you are more prone to having these kind of very over-the-top spiritual encounters. And even when they say, I met Jesus, is that really Jesus? Demons can pose as Jesus, can't they? And Mary. And I've never seen Jesus. I've never seen anyone. Anyway, just birdies and things like that, and omens, birdie omens. Anyway, so where am I going with this? Okay, so the long and short of it is, I've been watching a lot of these things. Obviously, you're not supposed to be doing astrology if you're a Christian. But when did this thing start, this big divide, like you can't do astrology if you're a Christian? Because if you go back, I found out that there was some catechism thing that happened in the 80s where they issued a statement about divination, and but this is recent. And then yes, in the Bible, in Deuteronomy, they go on about it too. But there they don't specifically mention astrology. They only say, I don't know, I can't remember what it is, but it's more to do with predictions, psychics, that kind of thing. They don't say astrology, I don't think. I can't remember. They don't specify it. So, and then I thought, well, I don't actually believe in the freaking Old Testament anyway. I'm more into, I'm into the New Testament. Who says you have to believe the Old Testament, which is just so mental when you look at it. And so I sort of discounted that anyway. But the thing is, like, they have a point. Like I said, they have a point about the New Age, because I never have got on with it. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to. So I've never got on with it. I've never done the druggy side of it. I don't get on with most other astrologers or any. I'm just on my own, really, on my own. And now I'm going to make myself even more on my own because all right, I'm coming out now. Okay, I'm coming out. I have a confession to make. Right, so 3 weeks ago, well, it all started actually with the monks, and the meditation while listening to Gregorian chants, because I thought, well, I do a lot of dealing with spirits and stuff, and I want to make sure that I'm clean before I do readings. I mean, this is actually real. And so let's do the Gregorian chants, clear the house, get your sage out, I need to get some frankincense, by the way, because that's way better. Anyway, yes, so get your sage out, all that stuff. Cleansing. So yeah, it started with the monks. So then, 3 weeks ago, I saw the rosaries on my wall, and they were all my grandma's, and I actually I picked one up, and I sat in the garden in the sun in the morning. I started doing it, and I got an app. I actually got an app, stuck it on my phone, because there were prayers that I didn't know on the rosary. I thought it was just Our Father and Hail Mary, but no, there's other ones too. So okay, that might be better. So 3 weeks ago I started saying the rosary every day, all of it. Well, not. There's 5 decans. There's 5 decans, and you just do the whole thing every morning. I've been doing it for 3 weeks. Then this is what happened. Then last Sunday, I thought, I'm being pulled to mass. I want to go to mass. Shall I go to mass? But I didn't want to go to my local church because it's a modern church and it's really ugly. And I thought, I don't know, I want the proper old church. So I actually went to an abbey where there are monks, and I went to the choral mass, and they did Gregorian chants, and they had a real organ, and oh my God, hallelujah! I had a spiritual awakening when that organ just went brrr after the reading. It did something. It bloody did something. No, it was absolutely beautiful. It was a beautiful service, but see, this is getting more and more deeper into it now. And then there was communion. I freaking couldn't go, could I? Because I haven't been to confession since I was 15, and even since I was married in a church. But in those days, it's always just, I've sinned, but I'll still go to communion. Who gives it, whatever. So, but now, because I know the proper things, I can't, because I've done all sorts of sins since then. And so in all now I know better. If you've lived in sin, if you've been divorced twice, anyway, I'm a right old sinner. So, and practicing witchcraft. So, I don't know what I'm going to say to the priest. So I thought, all right, if I want to go and receive the Eucharist this Sunday, I'm going to have to go tomorrow and do confession. Oh, am I going to do it? Shall I do it? I know this must sound really bonkers to people who haven't been brought up a Catholic, but I have been, and there's something very comforting and nice about it. Because I know, it's something I know. It's not completely new. I'm not like being born again to some weirdo thing. It's a tradition that's been going for thousands of years. And when I was in that church, it was a really lovely old church as well. The acoustics, it's like a free concert. And the feeling of togetherness, even though I didn't know any people there, it was just really nice. And there isn't anything really that you can go to be in a big group, in a congregation. I'd say there was about 150 people there. Yeah, probably. And have a feeling of, without it being drugs and drink, because most people, the only other time that they'd be in a crowd would be music, music, so it's drink, drugs, whatever, or football, drink. What other other events do you get where it's sobering, and you get to reflect? Oh, unless you go to, I suppose you could go to a Buddhist, you could go to a Buddhist, you go to a meditation retreat or something like that. And also, what's the other thing? Gong baths. Yeah. Now, this was really good. So I'm going again. Now, all right, so here, let's go to does it work with astrology? So And that's my coming out experience. But you know what's really weird is that the fear of doing this, thinking that people are just, I don't know. It's like, why is there shame? It's like coming out as a Catholic. It's insane. This is how weird it's got, that you can't. I don't know. I don't know what the reply is going to be, because I have talked about this before, but I always felt I was kind of LARPing before, because I've always had the Madonna behind me, and it's all like pretty icons, and it's just another god. It's just another avatar. It's all spiritual. It's all one. It's all the same thing. But now, once you start saying the rosary, and once you start going to freaking church, then you're proper. Well, I'm not proper. I'm about 3/4 of the way there. Once I go to confession and start receiving the Eucharist, I just love that. The Eucharist. So once I start doing that, I'm going to be a fully fledged. Oh, and I think I might join a choir, because I can sing, and I would love to do a bit of Kyrie's on. Oh, now it's windy. It was like, go this way. Okay, so what was I going to say? So yes, the astrology now. So now, let's go back in time. William Lilly, one of the most famous astrologers, he wrote a book called Christian Astrology, and he was clearly a Christian. In the Renaissance, people were Christians and astrologers, because religion was still big then, wasn't it? Going back further, what's her name? Elizabeth I. She was a Protestant, but she was clearly a Christian, and had John Dee, her famous astrologer magician. I mean, he was pretty occult. He was pretty hardcore occult, and so she counted herself as Christian. And nobody said, she was head of the Church of England. Nobody said that she was a heretic, yeah. And if you look on Wikipedia, they even say certain popes were practiced astrology. They used the mundane a lot more then. I don't know if personal astrology was so much, and that could explain it, because the mundane, this is what I think. Oh yeah, there's also that thing about archons, that the planets are archons, because, and I don't know where this comes from, but Chris Brennan read it out. Was it in the Bible or was it somewhere else? But when the soul comes down to heaven, it goes through the planetary realms, and as it descends, when it falls, and this is it, it picks up these sins, really. That's what it boils down to. It picks up material vices, or maybe it's not so much vices, but materiality. So I guess so you can relate to the material worlds, because if you're a spiritual being and you're suddenly plonked down into the material world where there are vices, so you go through the 7 planets and the 7 deadly sins. So they call them the archons. So in that case, but they don't say that the sun and the moon are not. They're not, and the stars and the constellations are not, because the firmament is not part of the planets. So when I read a chart now, I think, well, the only part that is closest to you is the ascendant, because the ascendant is what the rising stars that were there when you were born, and the sun is the sun. The sun is your mission, but it's also it's God's mission for you. Right, and it is connected with Creator God, because it is the Creator. Now the moon, I mean, it's had some bad press. So, the moon is this awful thing, but it's a luminary. It's classed as a luminary by the ancients, so it can't be a bad thing. And maybe it is to do with Mary, so it's not a negative thing. So those three are non-demonic, shall we say. But all the planets are, I think, tests. I think they're the demons. So you don't worship them. You don't worship Venus. You don't worship Lilith for sure. You don't worship Neptune, Uranus. They are all tests. So, and the horoscope is just showing you the tests that you will face. So when you've got something like Mars square Pluto in your chart, don't think, oh, that's me, you know, I'm cursed. It's like, no, you might experience Mars square Pluto as a temptation, but if you connect with God and the Creator, source energy, then it doesn't matter. And the same with transits. Pluto can't do anything to you if you connect to source. So that's my solution now. And I don't know if that's going to work, but it's good to know when you're going to be tested, I guess. But you can ignore it. You don't have to do the test. I think I'm going to sit down. Where should I sit down? Where's somewhere nice? Because I'm getting a bit knackered. Yeah, this is a good spot. Yeah, so you don't have to take the tests. You really don't. You don't have to take the test if you don't want to. But if you don't, it's like in life, if you want to improve yourself, if you want to take some kind of like, let's take this off, it's hot. Ow, scratchy. If you want to do a course to improve your qualifications, then it can be hard and you can fail or you can pass. But once you've done it, it raises you up to the next level. And I think when you've got these difficult tests, if you want to take Pluto square Mars, it's going to be tough, but it's going to push you forward in your spiritual development. And if you don't want to, if you feel too knackered, you can't be bothered, then you just don't. So, but for these planets for New Age people to give these planets so much power over you, and it's just rubbish, because they're not God. They're not God. They're minions. They're not. So, and they're not you either. So you can, yeah. So I hope that makes sense. I want to look into this more, because I don't understand why astrology has been demonized so much by Christianity. And the thing is, it's both ways. Like, you can't, like, if you're, all the New Age people and the astrologers just put down Catholicism. I mean, I'm not a fan of the Pope. I've always said this. The Vatican, it's obviously been corrupted. But just like, yeah, Christianity's been corrupted. New Age is being corrupted. There's corruption in every single religion in the world. There just is, because it's human. It's man-made. So you can't start saying, you can't throw the baby out with the bath water. But on both sides, like, astrology's got a lot to teach us. It's got a lot to teach Christians. They want to kind of get into it, and the same the other way. Like, the Bible. And its mythology or its truth, we don't really know, has a lot to teach astrologers. So, yeah. And why can't you be both? Why can't you be both? I mean, it's super powerful, I think, if you can do both, if you're allowed to be. Because, I mean, I feel like it's a bit of an imbalance if you just do New Age, because it's very dark. It is very dark. The whole kind of witchy thing as well. I'm not really into being witchy anymore either. Because it can get too dark, and it's also it can be very narcissistic as well. But so can the Christians, because I noticed some of the very evangelizing ones, and the ones who are like, well, that's it now. Jesus is my saviour. Jesus is my saviour. You know. they have this real arrogance about them, some of them, you know. And what they were saying about astrology was so basic. It was so like reading the horoscopes. Only God knows your future. Yes, I agree. Only Source knows your future. These days, you can't compare daily rubbish horoscopes written by some scammer who just wants to sell newspapers to Jesus. I mean, of course. So we're not getting a sensible discussion from anyone, anywhere, apart from, you know, hats off to Chris Brennan and the Astrology Podcast for bringing the subject together, because it taught me some things I didn't know about it as well. And I'm not going to do a Doreen Virtue either. So I think, is there anything else I haven't covered? I think I mentioned, I think that's it. So there are times when I think, and I have questioned this, is have I been possessed by the demiurge? And this whole thing about worshipping, I don't want to be worshipping some demiurge now. I don't want to be, I never worshipped, the thing is I never worshipped astrology either, and I was always sceptical about that. And I'm just as skeptical about Catholicism as well, obviously. But I want to take the best of both worlds, and hopefully the dark and the light sort of balance each other out. And I hope it will just make me a better astrologer. And it's nice. It's nice. There's one thing I didn't really address, is why? Why do this? Why? Because it's so much easier not to do this. It's so much easier to just carry on and be a new agey astrologer who just has Pretty Mary and rosaries around just as a fashion statement, you know, and just LARP. And just say, oh, well, you know, it's corrupt because of the paedophiles, so why, you know. But the thing is, and this is what's good about it, is that when you start getting into it, you realise that otherwise there's no morality. There's nothing. In the New Age, there's no kind of guidelines, there's no restrictions. You can be whatever you want to be. You can be whatever sex you want to be. You can identify as a freaking helicopter if you want to. There's a million alphabet letters that you can be. You can be anything, man. You can be anything. And there is no discipline. There's no saying no. There's no cultivating of any willpower, like saying no to things. And it's hard. It's hard keeping to the Ten Commandments. It's so extreme, like the wording, like, you know, you're living in mortal sin. And it does make you feel, you know, there are times where I think, God, makes me feel right shame, you know. And I don't, that's the aspect that I don't like. But the thing is, there's also, on the positive, there is forgiveness and graces and all really nice things, if you repent. And although it is hard to live by the commandments, it won't do you any harm. You know, it won't do you any harm. And it's a challenge. I think it makes you a better person. It does make you think about, am I of service to others? Am I actually being charitable? You know, the sins of things like pride and stuff like that. You know, it's quite a good value system. And I know that there's going to be all the politically incorrect things as well. But, you know, it's an ideal. I think the whole thing about Christianity, it was developed to civilize people. And it was successful, you know, for society. It was successful to keep men under control, so that they're not going around just shagging everyone. I mean, I know it doesn't, men still have affairs, but it makes you question it. Like, if you're going to church and you've sinned and you don't go to communion because you've been having an affair or whatever, it makes you look at it. Otherwise, you just you can kind of blissfully ignore your failings. So and I think we are kind of fallen. We are, left to their own devices, it just degenerates, really. Anyway, I just think it's a good. No one's perfect, and no one's going to be 100%, with the commandments or anything like that. But they're not a bad thing to try to aspire to, It's not a bad thing to do, I think, to restrict. And also, certain practices, I can't actually fast because I've got Gilbert syndrome, and you're not supposed to. It's bad for me. But to restrict yourself, to restrict calories, I mean, I do eat, to give up sugar and things like that for Lent, or give up chocolate for Lent. It's good to make a sacrifice, to the gods, if you like. That's what people always used to do. If they were going to ask for something, they would have to give something up in return, and that's just the law of nature. You can't get anything good without putting some freaking hard work into it, and having willpower and resisting temptations. Those are good things to cultivate in you, and it makes you a stronger person spiritually and just physically as well, So those are things. Otherwise, look at how society's got, where you just see the degeneration in your regular human beings. Lowest common denominator. Watching crap on TV and eating loads of plastic and not being healthy. Yeah, okay. So I'll leave it there.